Spinning, spinning, spinning. Okay, you are live. We are
We
live.
are. Yay. Hi, Scott.
Hey, Chika, how are you? This is the first time we've done this since New Year's.
I know. 2021 it is.
And here we are. Indeed.
Yeah.
So what have you been up to in the new year?
Well, we had a very quiet New Year's. We didn't do a whole lot of things. A lot of people, I think, still went out and went to temples and shrines, but I just went to somewhere really local and had a very small gathering. So that was really nice.
Nice.
Yeah, how about you?
Well, my New Year's is basically, stay home and watch Anderson Cooper get drunk on live TV. It's a family tradition, and couldn't imagine not doing that.
Yeah. And as of yesterday, where I am right now in Osaka, we have gone under state of emergency because the numbers are surging. So,
oh no, again?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
But it seems like people are not as, how can I say, like before when they did that state of emergency back in, was it April? All the stores were closed and events and everything had to be closed. But now they're saying, if you could limit 50% of the people in the audience and, you can open up the stores until 8 p.m. It's okay. So, it's not as strict as it was back in the days, and it is in California at least, but yeah.
Well, it's strict, but people aren't following it for the most part. I think everybody's just decided we're just going to vaccinate our way out of this, and that's that, which is frustrating. I've been very good for almost a year, and it's kind of a bummer. But anyway, that's fine. I think we can see the light at the end of the tunnel here. And and we've been having fun. I mean, let's be honest. We wouldn't have thought of doing this if we weren't on lockdown. And
that's true.
This is a lot of fun. I think this is one of those things that I'm always having conversations with people. Like, what do you think the things are that we started doing during lockdown that we might continue doing afterwards? And one is I'm never attending a face-to-face meeting with anybody ever again, for any reason whatsoever. Even if they're in the same building, because I'm used to this now. But
what's the point of walking 3 or 4 steps next door? And
well, here's the thing: if someone's in the room with me, I can't mute them. I can't turn my camera off and pretend to be listening. There are all sorts of reasons that make it better. So I would never do that to you, just for the record. No. Wait, what?
What?
So, hey, everybody, we are here. This is our first broadcast of 2021. We were planning to do this last week, but just with all of the things happening in the States, it didn't seem appropriate to come on here and talk about guitar and saxophone. It was a weird day, so we decided to postpone it, and here we are. And
I got the note right when I woke up from Scott.
Yeah. That's really something to wake up to. But we all agreed that it made sense to wait until this week. So here we are, but we're going to be on a regular schedule now. Now that we're through the holidays and through, insurrections and all of that. So, And today, Chika, who are we talking to today? I know you're really excited about this.
Yeah. So we have an awesome guest today. His name is Douglas Masek. He's a saxophonist based in Los Angeles. And I should say he is one of my first real saxophone teacher. I studied with him at UCLA, and he is the one who showed what classical saxophone was and all the saxophone music that are out there, and showed, everything what I should know about the saxophone world. So I'm super thrilled to have him over, and we get to interview Doug today.
Yeah, and long before you and I met, he was the first classical saxophonist that I really ever heard. And we'll get into why that is later on in the hour, huh?
Yeah. And he not only restricts himself as a classical saxophonist, but he does, so many different kinds of genres. He was also, as a studio musician, he played in many film music as well. And also had a CD out with various woodwind instrument as well. So he's very versatile.
Right. Okay. Well, what do you say we bring him in here and get this party started?
Excellent.
All right. Hey, Doug.
Hi, Chika. Konnichiwa.
Hi.
Konnichiwa. Hey, Scott. How you doing?
How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great.
You've still got the holiday festivities behind you there.
Yeah, that's pretty.
I
Lights
thought
and everything.
I was tempted to leave mine up until the lockdown's officially over. It's like you might as well have fun.
That's right. That's right. It's a little more festive.
Yeah, indeed. But we took ours down. It's just,
Okay.
I had the energy to do it that day. So, I guess the first thing I always ask is, since March, especially here in Los Angeles, we've been on some pretty strict. I hate to call it lockdown, but I'm starting to just use the safer at home. We're not imprisoned or anything, but there's just not much to do if you go out. Certainly for a working musician, the options have diminished. What have you been doing to keep yourself sort of inspired and creative during a time when none of us have? Well, Chika has, because she's in a country that's doing this better, but been able to perform live much.
Right. I've been practicing pretty much every day and keeping my chops up. In a way, this reminds me a lot when I was in college. All I did was practice anyway. So it wasn't like I was going out venturing and doing all this stuff. So staying home 6-8 hours a day practicing is commonplace in a sense.
Now that you mentioned it, I thought this seemed familiar, and now I realize it was grad school.
Right. But I've actually been going through some old recordings, not real old recordings, and some recordings I've never listened to. I'm one of those that I'll record something and I'll put it away because I'll keep the memory of how I recorded it or how I performed it in my head. And I didn't feel a need to go back. But now with all this time, I've been going back through some of my old recordings, and I'm actually thinking about putting out a CD of my live performances. So, I've got some things with orchestra that I've have recordings of, and with piano and just various things. One piece by Roger Borland for cello, viola, and soprano saxophone that I played on a faculty recital years ago. So I've got a mix and match of so many different things. So I'm starting to go back through this stuff, and I think I have some pieces that will work for a recording. And it's nice to revisit this stuff because, like I said, there's quite a few in particular that I just never listened back to. And it's kind of fun to listen to what I used to sound like.
Yeah.
No, you sound fabulous.
Like actors you hear when they say, "What did you think of the finished movie?" They're like, "I never saw it."
Right.
And people are always like, that's impossible. What do you mean you never saw it? And, people, they don't do it. No need.
Right. When I go back and listen, I think, why did you play it like that? Why did you, I'll hear a particular fingering that I use and I think, why did you do that? So it's better just left alone and it's in my head. I got the note and we'll leave it at that. So,
yeah, that's so interesting as you play other pieces and you acquire, certain techniques and you realize that's much easier than what I used to do. Or
that's right. And getting up in my age, and I'm listening back to when I was younger. I thought, wow, you had fingers that moved. So that's always encouraging too. But so that's one project I'm looking at, and I'm very excited about doing that. So it'll also save on editing. I don't have to do any editing. I'll just remaster everything together and just put it in one compilation, and we'll see where that goes.
Excellent.
And also, I'm very active with my saxophone quartet.
That's right.
We're not playing right now, but we're getting bookings into late 2021, and we got a booking yesterday in 2022. And
Excellent.
we do have management now, and it's working out really well. So we made a couple of promotional bits that we're submitting, and so I'm always excited about the quartet. And so that's another project that I've been working on.
You know, Doug, a lot of it wasn't until Chika took me to the North American Saxophone Alliance in Tucson that I ever heard a saxophone quartet. So, and I was kind of blown away by the sound, having heard a lot of string quartets and guitar quartets,
Right.
Things like that. But I just know that a lot of people who aren't saxophonists or in that world who might be watching this may not know what a saxophone quartet is. Would you mind maybe describing what that
Sure.
instrumentation is?
Right. Well, the instrument was invented in the 1840s by Adolph Sax, and that's where we get the name saxophone. And the primary instruments are the soprano, saxophone, alto, tenor, and baritone, which are the most familiar of all of them. And Adolph also invented a bass, the contrabass, subcontrabass. There's a sopranino saxophone, a soprillo, and he has a wide range of sound throughout the entire saxophone family. But for the modern day saxophone quartet, we keep it to 4: soprano, alto, tenor, and baritone. And we play transcriptions. We do contemporary. This particular quartet I have, the reason I'm so excited about it is that we play a lot of jazz, and all 4 of us are classically trained, but we do cross over into really any style that one can imagine. So that's what makes it really exciting for me with this particular quartet. I started the quartet when I was in grad school at University of Southern California when I was working on my doctorate back in 1984. And I haven't had many changes through that number of years up until now. So it makes it really exciting when you get 4 players together that can articulate together and vibrate together with a vibrato and the phrasing, and we share ideas, and it's an exciting ensemble experience.
Well, another great quartet to come out of USC. The Los Angeles Guitar Quartet was the USC Guitar Quartet.
Yeah.
Probably right around that time, I would think.
It was.
Okay.
I was fortunate to work with a true master of the head of the guitar department at USC during that time, James Smith, Scott, who of course you know very well.
He's the one who accepted me into the program.
Right. And Jim and I formed a duo for many years. We called it Windwood. And Jim was a master of arranging. I was playing clarinet, soprano saxophone, alto saxophone with Jim, with all his various arrangements. And we were extremely active. We were fortunate. There were years we did 30, 40 concerts a year.
Wow.
And we were really, really busy. And unfortunately, Jim passed away a few years back.
I think 2008?
Eight, yep. Yeah, that sounds right. And it was a real shocker. And Jim and I were together for 30 plus years. So it was a long, long time that Jim and I performed together. And it was a great combination. I just had so much fun. And Jim was a real character, of course. And, it was an adventure. It was a true adventure.
I would do my Jim Smith impersonation, but this is being recorded, so I'm not going to do that. But yeah, Jim, to say he was a character is really, really underselling it. He was a force of nature, in my opinion. Yeah. And he, when you mentioned his arrangements, I was thinking of his guitar literature class and his arranging class, and he came in every day with copies, he had the poor TA making copies of all of his arrangements. They were all handwritten by him. I mean, he never used any digital, he never had anybody else set them. It was all just his own handwriting. I got really used to reading it, and he had just, it must have, at least hundreds. Maybe more of you name it. Anything he had all these arrangements of it. You couldn't carry it all, out of class.
Right.
He gave you so much.
That's why he had so many students, because of everything for him. I miss Jim immensely. And the recitals that we used to do at USC, they went on for over 3 hours at times.
Jim Smith and Friends.
Jim Smith and Friends.
I have sat through those, and
right, they were pretty amazing. Yeah.
Oh, so it was not just you and Jim; it was various artists coming in and out.
Well, yeah, he had various people come in with him, and
he had a trio.
Right. Yeah.
With cello and something else. I'm blocking.
Violin
and cello.
And then he had a quartet with cello, violin, and flute. And then he would always close the program with a big extravaganza piece, which would include everybody. And it was really something.
That's fun.
And then we had a huge reception afterwards. So, great party guy.
Well, I was very familiar with his eggnog.
Right.
You could also use that as a paint thinner if you ever needed to. And we actually had you and Jim come play once or twice at Cal State Dominguez Hills. I remember you coming to play. You were the first guitar saxophone duo that I'd heard. We do a lot of guitar flute, guitar voice. Sometimes you see guitar and keyboard and other things, but saxophone was completely unknown to me at the time as even a classical instrument, let alone a potential duo partner for a classical guitar. Yes. But Jim and you, man, you really made that work. So
the beauty of working with Jim also, of course, the saxophone can be such an overpowering instrument. Especially next to a guitar.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
Scott knows.
But Jim was such a strong player that when we performed, he never used amplification. And
That's incredible.
I could pretty much play out normally. There were times, of course, I had to get a little softer, but overall, it was never a lot of work to play.
So, Scott, that's possible.
Well, so Jim, first off, Jim had nails that Freddy Krueger would want to rave from. They were epic. His nails, and he went to a salon to have them done, so they were all gelled up. So they were they were weapons. And then he played this guitar. I think it was a Mattingly guitar, and he had that thing set up. Most guitar players like to have the strings pretty low, so it's kind of manageable. But he had his set up like a suspension bridge. Those things were so far off the neck. It was, for most people, it was completely unplayable, but he had Jim was a big guy, he had these monster hands, just monster hands. Yeah. A lot of his arrangements we all tried to play, and half of the students, maybe more, couldn't play any of them because you couldn't get half the stretches he was asking you to get. Wow. So, he was built for power. Let's say that.
Right. Yeah, it really was. And also with many of the arrangements, we would borrow from the flute guitar repertoire. So Jim was kind to me that way because I could just read the flute parts straight out without transposing. And Jim would have another guitar. He would tune the guitar to B flat. It would be a B flat guitar. Instead of having the guitar in C, and then I would have to transpose up into a crazy key for a saxophone, that I could just play the parts as written. And
that's so nice.
And then Jim would be able to play it by just tuning the guitar down.
Chika and I have a piece that I tune everything down a half step in order to not have to deal with all the transposition.
Right.
That can be a little tricky with guitar and saxophone.
Oh yes, very much.
Yeah, I mean, what did you guys find that you had a limited number of keys that things really kind of worked in?
Limited keys?
Yeah, we're finding that we tend to gravitate towards A and E and
Yeah, we have like about 4 keys that we gravitate towards.
I don't recall. All I know is that everything worked. Everything was in the normal range of the instrument, that I didn't have to stretch it at all. And of course, Chika, as you know, getting up into F sharps and Gs up there, that it's hard to really bring it down dynamically.
Yeah.
That Jim would keep me down in the tessitura, the normal tessitura of the instrument, which made it much favorable for intonation as well as dynamics. So it was a great marriage. It was really, really, really fine.
Yeah, I think for us, when the tonic is, or C, when there's like a piece that requires a lot of C sharp.
Oh God! And when Jim and I first started, I would tell him, I said, if I have to transpose this flute part, it's going to put me in E.
Yeah, E.
And I've got all these open notes: the G sharp, C sharp,
G sharp.
And he said, well, how about if I just transpose the guitar? And I said, perfect. So that would put me in F and B flat or G.
Those are our favorite keys.
Yeah.
But usually nothing more than 3 sharps.
That's because Jim was a guitar player.
Right. Yeah.
I'm sure he told you the reason being, and the reason flat keys don't work so well either, is our open strings E, A, D, G, B, E. If you start going either way in the circle of fifths, you're taking more and more of our open strings away, which not only makes it harder to shift because you have to play everything closed, but it actually affects the resonance of the guitar. So you don't get a lot of that sympathetic vibration. Right. So the guitar, like if you try to play in like F or something like that, it just sounds kind of closed and kind of, I don't know. It's not open. It's not a big, beautiful sound.
Right. Yeah. So. Yeah. And also, when we did our recording, we recorded at USC in that beautiful hall. I can't remember the name of it right now.
Bovard Auditorium.
No,
Hancock.
The small recital hall.
Yeah.
We didn't use any Jim didn't use any amplification, and that's a nice live hall. And with great natural reverb, and everything worked.
I've played it there a million times, and I actually, for those who've been at USC more recently, that's now Newman.
Oh, that's right, Newman Hall, right? Yeah, the Hall, right.
Yeah, the USC loves those naming rights.
Right, they do.
There's money to be made here. Screw Hancock.
There is.
How much did he give anyway? I already have my degree. I can say whatever I want.
Exactly.
So, Doug, did you transcribe any music with Jim together?
No.
Like, did you? No. So no. He mainly did the arrangement.
I would make suggestions to him about which pieces could work, and he would go at it. He had his own little system down for doing the guitar bits. There would be no way I would know how to transcribe.
No. And all the numbers.
Right. I'm a single line guy. Single line. So I would just offer suggestions to Jim, and he would have it out the next day practically. He just loved the challenge, and some things worked. There were some things that didn't work so well, and we used to do a lot of house party gigs, and so it was a great chance for us to try new music out and do it that way.
Yeah. Jim, man, he's so he really built that program. I mean, he wasn't the first guitar professor at USC, but he really brought it to life. I think Parkening started it, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right. He did.
Yeah, I think it was Parkening, but it's hard to run a guitar program when you're playing 300 concerts a year.
Well, that's for sure.
So he's a little bit preoccupied there. So yeah, Jim mostly stayed local. I don't remember him traveling too much.
Not that much, no.
Yeah. So yeah, he was very effective. Yeah, actually, when I was accepted there, he took me as a freshman and I wasn't quite sure what I was doing in his studio because it was all graduate students. But yeah, felt a little over my head there for a while.
Okay. Yeah, but Jim had a way of bringing everybody together, as you know, and everybody was an equal. I felt when I would see him teach master classes, and he put that program on the map, no question about it.
Yeah,
and then with that LA Guitar Quartet, his students, phenomenal, just phenomenal. Yeah,
yeah, still the best quartet in the land.
Oh, really is. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we had Andrew York on last time we did this, so he was another product of that. You know, he wasn't in the original LA Guitar Quartet, but he spent 25 years with them, so
I see
that he can stamp his card.
That's for sure. Yeah, and the two of you carrying on that tradition with your new CD, Unfettered. I think it's great. It's wonderful to have you carry this tradition on. Wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
Thank you.
That means a lot coming from you. Actually, the first time Chika and I played together was playing some music that was written for you and Jim. It was just sort of one of those composition recitals, and you're like, "Hey, you guys want to play?" And here's the piece. There it is to Jim Smith and Doug Masek.
Yeah.
Cool. Your teacher and mine. How this is?
Yeah.
The universe is saying something here, isn't it?
Right.
That was very, very cool.
Yeah, and that's where it all started. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, we don't have the 30 years that you guys have yet. I think
yeah.
We're only we're in year 4 or 5, I think, at this point.
Well, you're young.
Less and less so. That's definitely true. So other than your live recording, are you working on some new rep? Do you work with composers now? Are you doing a deep dive into improvisation? What is studio work like in LA right now? Is it mostly remote or totally just stopped?
It stopped. Yeah. It's like live music. It's all stopped. Yeah. Nothing.
And there's no estimate of when, right? When those events can open up again, right?
No.
In LA.
No, it's all see what happens.
Up in the air.
All up in the air. Yeah. No, there's
right. Yeah, that's scary. Although I've seen a lot of people doing remote things, and I've seen pictures of people with masks in studios, and I don't know, it just seems a little claustrophobic to be in a room with a bunch of people, especially singing and blowing wind instruments. I don't know, that makes me a little nervous.
Me too. Yeah.
But so are you working on some new music, new compositions?
Nothing really new. No. Looking at quartet stuff, for that, and but just keeping my chops loosened up and ready to go.
Yeah.
That it's so easy, as you know, to just put it aside and wait for that next gig, but then you're struggling at the end. So I'm ready, and like our management company says, you have to be ready. That when these places are going to spring to ask for performers, you just have to be ready. And the way I was taught, my teachers were all performers, and they said you always have to just be ready, because there's always going to be somebody who's going to be practicing more than you are, and you've got it's survival of the fittest, as you both know, for the arts. And, there's always going to be somebody else there.
Yeah,
I used to have a T-shirt when I was a music student before I achieved this enlightened place as an artist, and rather than how fast are your scales? I don't know, how fast are your scales? Not that I've really ever gotten over that, but it was a Nike shirt and it said somewhere somebody is practicing, and when you meet them in competition, they will beat you. And you just do it, and it was like that was sort of my attitude, go to my practice room and lift guitars, things like that. Be the strongest and the fastest guitarist. But no, I love what you said. Just staying ready, because we don't know
when that opportunity will come.
That's right.
I mean, if things went let's say we're back in business in a month, and you suddenly get 5 bookings, and you haven't played in 3 months.
That's
You're
right.
not going to be able to take those jobs.
Yeah, it's so easy to just put it aside right now. And but thankfully, like I say, when I was in school, I was practicing all the time, and I was staying in the house practicing. So that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine who is a great all-around guitar player, studio musician, and he's sort of holding up in Chicago at the moment. And yeah, I said, we were sort of trained for this in a way, weren't we? Just to,
Right.
be kind of alone, not going out too much.
Yes. Right. Yeah.
Not that everybody's doing great, but
Yeah.
I think we're maybe more prepared for something like this than some people.
I think so.
Yeah.
Getting a couple of comments in the
Hi.
chat. Benjamin Boone.
Oh, Ben. Oh, yeah. Ben. Oh, yeah, Ben. Hi, Ben.
He said, hey, Doug, I'd like to hear more of your studio work. My kids are watching and interested in that. By the way, my youngest is 16 and a quite good mandolinist. And my oldest at UCLA is quite a good tenor player. He took it up during COVID. So, and then he said to you, Chika, when you're here for Summer Arts, he's going to cook a feast for everyone, assuming they have vaccines.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, well, the studio work, it's so different than playing a concerto. That's for sure. Talk about fundamentals. The fundamentals have to be there for the studio work. You have to play in tune. You have to know your scales. You have to be sharp for the small snippets that come through. You're not going to be playing perhaps more than 1 page of music at a time. And you might be playing long notes, long tones the entire time. So this is all fundamental stuff. Like I say, you're not going to be playing a Ben Boone concerto, that's for sure. Not going to be anything on that level. But another reason to practice the fundamentals of long tones, scales. For me, I did a lot, primarily all doubling when I was playing in the studios. A lot of clarinet, playing bass clarinet, alto saxophone, tenor, baritone were primarily the instruments that I was playing. But there would be calls I'd just be playing straight clarinet.
Wow.
Yeah, so keeping chops up on all those instruments was crucial.
I mean, that's very difficult to be keeping up with everything, right? Equally. Yeah.
It really is.
And you have to really have to set a time of, how much time you're going to practice for each instrument.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So the discipline has to be there, especially for wind players who double. Studio orchestras like to have players who can double because it's cost effective, for one thing. For the specialty items, like if it's going to be a jazz call, they will bring in usually a jazz specialist who can just blow the walls down with his or her improvisation. So my improv chops aren't what a Gary Foster or Eric Marienthal would be by any means. So they would call them in for the specialty things. So there's a lot to do for wind doublers in the studio, for sure.
Yeah. And you also have to read very quickly, right? You have to be a good sight reader.
Oh, it's sight, yes. And that gets down to fundamentals also, right?
Yeah.
Sight reading is absolutely critical to know.
Yeah.
Before I got into college, my father was a pianist, and so I used to just sight read the piano music on saxophone or clarinet or flute, whatever it may be. So I would practice altissimo early on because playing a piano part, single line goes up above the normal range of the instrument, obviously. But putting the metronome on and just going through it without stopping and just getting the eyes trained to move to one measure to the next without stopping. So that was a great lesson for me later on when I did get into the studio work, and being able to adapt to all that sight reading that's involved. Like I say, there would be calls that would be fundamentally very easy if they were all half notes and whole notes and things like this. But when you have to play it under pressure, and they might say, okay, we're going to do this in one take, you don't want to be the one they're going to have to stop for.
Yeah.
So it's really a lot of discipline. Also, having a working knowledge of jazz, classical, contemporary, to be able to cover anything that's put in front of you, because you don't get the music ahead of time. And
Right.
sometimes you'll get maybe 2 run-throughs for sound checks, and then that red light comes on, and that's it. And like I say, you don't want to be the one they're going to stop for.
Right.
Because you have a 100-piece orchestra, they have to stop for you. They're looking at, okay, how much are we going to pay this group for overtime? So.
Right. Yeah. A friend of mine. I never had the opportunity to do a lot of studio work. A couple little sessions, but LA guitar is really tied up by about back in the late '80s, early '90s, by maybe 10 people. Now it's maybe 3. So that's a tough little group to break into. But a friend of mine was doing a film, and it was a Danny Elfman score, and he said he thought he was doing great. He was going to be there on time. He realized he was low on gas, and it was cold, and he stopped. And he spilled gasoline all over his hands. And, he's like all nervous, and he gets there, and he comes in, and he sits down, and he tunes up, and the red light came on.
Right.
And, Danny Elfman's on the other side of the glass. An orchestra next to him, and yeah, and he somehow managed to rise to the occasion. So that takes a certain kind of player. So Benjamin thinks you're selling yourself short, Doug, by saying you're a doubler. He said, I should say quadrupler.
Quadrupler.
Well, I did get my master's degree in woodwinds, so I had to perform a recital on saxophone, clarinet, flute, oboe, and bassoon. So I did do the double reeds as well down the road. I never really got into double reeds when I got to LA because I was always just getting calls for clarinet, flute, and saxophone. So, but the double reeds could have worked if I would have gotten any calls for it. So
how different is it? I mean, I know it's very different, but how easily can somebody move from, say, a soprano saxophone to an oboe?
Starting out, it's very challenging, but you find the right equipment that works well for a situation that. And I used to practice this. I have all the instruments lined up and just playing maybe 15 measures or so, and then grab the flute and play that and practice the actual doubling in my practice sessions. So it's thinking along the lines. If I'm playing flute, I'm a flute player. I'm not a saxophone player trying to grab this flute and hanging on for dear life. I'm thinking actually flute, or I'm thinking clarinet. I'm a clarinet player right now. That I'm playing principal clarinet in a symphony.
You have to mentally set yourself.
Mentally, it's mental. Yeah, definitely. And confidence is so much a big part of it. Also, you just can't be nervous about it.
Right.
I did 4 years of playing Phantom of the Opera, just clarinet and flute. So that was, and there were flute solos that I had to contend with. And so my days were practicing flute and clarinet, doubling, things like that. So, but those were my primary instruments. And like I say, with my woodwinds degree, playing the double reeds was a part of it as well.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm always amazed by, people who are so versatile with their instruments, because, for me, it's like, to play a steel string guitar is sort of like a little out of the box.
Right.
And it's been years since I've seriously even played electric guitar, but then I have friends who can jump around. They've got a mandolin, and now they're doing this, and now they're doing that. And, I did a performance with one person who's a well-known studio player still, and sideman, and we had a piece that we did where he used mandolin, but he forgot the mandolin. And the presenter for the concert had a charango, which is like an Argentine instrument made out of this like an armadillo shell, completely different instrument, but kind of in the same range. And he just goes, "What's the tuning?" Okay, got it. And then he just sort of went like that. And then that was it. He just played it. And we did the gig. It was just like, you've got to be kidding me. You've got to be. Yeah, that was Julian Coriel, Chika.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Brain works different.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. And Doug, you mentioned when I was your student, how important it is to double another Windwind instrument. And, I've been told from many people that, and of course I did try to, pick up all those instruments, and I can, I am teaching woodwind classes and I'm fine with them, but, I never really felt like I would be a doubler. So I, only continue with the saxophone. But do you have any advice to any, aspiring saxophone players or any aspiring doublers, what they should be, any advice to them you would give about doubling?
Oh, yes. What I would recommend going with a specialist, like a saxophone player. If you want to learn to play flute, go to somebody who plays flute for a living. And you can find out so many things that you never thought about, rather than trying to pick it up and learn over YouTube or something like that. The same with any of the doubles. My father being a pianist, even though he was classically trained, he was a jazz pianist. But he introduced me to the world of woodwind, because in his early years he was a saxophone doubler. He played clarinet. Oh. Yeah, he didn't get really into flute, but he got into clarinet and sax. So he knew, if you want to get into this, I'd really suggest you learn your doubles. And at that time, when I was in high school, I didn't know what doubling meant. And then he said, okay, I'm going to get you a clarinet. You're going to take clarinet lessons from a clarinet person, and you're going to learn flute from a flute person. And then later on, after I developed these chops, then I found out who the players were. Like in LA, Gary Foster is he's retired now, but really one of the top doublers in town. And I studied with Gary, and also David Shostak I studied with flute. And I learned things about the embouchure that worked well for doubling. And you find these tips out from the guys who are doing it also. But I think the fundamentals of finding out what the embouchure is all about, and finding what instrument works and things like that, I think are essential. It's really essential. When I hear about players that learn to play on YouTube, good for them. But I think you miss out on a lot if you can get with a specialist. I had, when I was in undergrad school, I studied with Jack Wellbaum, who was the piccolo player with the Cincinnati Symphony, and but a great flute player also. And when I was in New York, I studied with Robert Cavalli. Names probably you're not familiar with their past, but in their prime, they were the go-to people for teaching. And when I'm from Cleveland, so I studied with Robert Marcellus of the Cleveland Orchestra, who was principal clarinet. And the wealth of information that I could transfer over into doubling was just incredible. So again, finding the right equipment and having the confidence to do it.
Yeah, I didn't know you were a Midwest guy. I'm Indiana here.
That's same thing.
Yeah. my great uncle was in Cleveland.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm not going to make any Cleveland jokes. But,
that's okay. There's no problem.
Yeah. But my question is somebody who finds it challenging just to spend enough time on, one instrument. I guess the question is how do you put in the hours on multiple instruments if there are differences between those instruments? That seems like
it's
a real heavy lift.
Yeah, it is. And that's why I feel getting with the proper teachers, there's a lot of shortcuts. I mean, not short that you can't still work on it, but when you have the fundamentals down, it really saves a lot of time than trying to figure it out on somebody's own time. So yeah, it's time consuming, no doubt about it. Especially if you get a call and say, okay, you're just going to be playing flute on Thursday session, then I'm going to spend my time primarily on flute. So if I get a heads up, I will concentrate on that particular instrument for X amount of time and do it that way.
Yeah, I'm trying to imagine 10,000 hours on 4 instruments. That's a lot of hours there.
Yeah, my first teacher was primarily a clarinetist, and he did do some doubling on saxophone, but he actually started me to play saxophone. But then after 6 months, I was a clarinet player. And at the time, my father really encouraged that I stick with clarinet because there's always symphony work. And my heart and soul was still with the saxophone. But I stuck it out with clarinet. And then I eventually did get a principal clarinet position with Cape Town Symphony. And I played a lot in South Africa just on clarinet. And I did sub work with the LA Opera. I did a couple principal clarinet sub work jobs with them.
That's impressive.
So yeah, it was exciting though. I mean, that's really what I trained myself to do. And but it's having the confidence to do it also.
Yeah. And you had a clarinet CD out as well, right?
A mix
of Woodwind.
Jim and I did so much clarinet and guitar things too. Yeah. Also, it was easier to play clarinet dynamically than sax.
Yeah, I've played with clarinet, and it was easier.
Yeah, you can really get down there with the sub.
And I played with oboe, and I played with flute, and I've never had the problems that I have with saxophone. You guys are just loud. It's just a loud instrument, but
no question about it. It's challenging. Right.
It's challenging, but Scott has also been training me to play quiet, and I also think it's a very essential thing that saxophonists should learn how to do.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I learned so much playing with Jim. I really did, about myself and about the instrument. And Jim, of course, had perfect pitch, and the saxophone, as you know, is not a perfect pitch instrument. Right.
Neither is the guitar.
So, and Jim didn't like to waver from A440. He liked 440. I like 441. Maybe 442.
We're at 442. Yeah.
Yeah. So Jim was set on 440, and yeah, that was challenging, but it was good for me.
And Jim, not necessarily known for his ability to compromise.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yes, I remember that well.
That's okay.
Yeah. Okay. No, it's fascinating to add. So many questions about saxophone. I when I was in middle school, I played saxophone in the bands. I played alto and tenor.
That's
for 3 years, and right now my 12-year-old son is a aspiring saxophonist. And,
wonderful.
Yeah, he had a lesson today, and he sounded really good up in his room.
Yeah, his son didn't want to take up on the guitar.
I'll work this out in therapy, but I play guitar and Chika plays saxophone, and he listens to it and goes, "That's great. I want a saxophone." I'm like, wait a minute. Wait a second.
Right.
So we'll see. But when he gets good enough, when Chika's not around, he can practice with me, and I can work on my parts with a live saxophone. So that'd be great.
Yeah, and then he can do the arrangement for me, and then
there you go. You've got this all figured out, don't you?
That's good.
Yeah.
Fine. Yeah, we'll make it work. But yeah, lots of saxophones and guitars around here. Right. Kind of I don't know, philosophical question, but if Jim was still around, what do you guys think you'd be doing? I mean, do you think you'd be exploring new rep, having arrangements?
Definitely.
Yeah, and when we lose somebody like Jim, I always wonder, like he was so prolific. What more would he have done?
Mm-hmm.
And be of course it's unanswerable, but
it is. Yeah,
there could have been so much, more content there.
Right. Well, we felt we were on a mission and educating, and of course Jim loved to talk, and
I know.
Well, it's really interesting. We started out playing at the Triforium. I don't know if you all know what the Triforium is. That was an LA landmark, and at the time it's down near Pershing Square, and it was set up to be a gathering place for people, that this is the center of LA. And it was an artwork that was like a light show. They would play recordings and different lights would come on to different sounds and all that stuff. So Jim and I actually did a concert series at the Triforium. That's where we started out.
Huh.
And I don't know where I'm going with this. I forgot my train of thought. But yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm just going to say Jim was famous for playing anywhere.
I know what it was about talking about the music. And I, of course, in between pieces, I wanted to get my clarinet reed wet, or my saxophone. And I would say, Jim, just talk. And he'd say, I don't know what to say. So then I would talk about the music. And then in our rehearsal, you say, Jim, just educate the people about what we're going to be playing and a little bit of the composer, and just give me time to breathe a little bit and set up the other instrument, especially because we played night concerts and the clarinet would get cold. And I wanted to warm it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And, just blow air through it. But he always had me do the talking. Of course, he was always tuning the guitar. But you can talk and tune the guitar.
Yeah, that's right.
This is true.
Finally, after a few concerts, he started slowly talking, and then by the end of, when we were really swinging into all our concerts, he was just taking over and talking like, Jim, we have to do a little playing now.
I must have gotten that from Jim because, I think until maybe the mid 80s, late 80s, classical guitar, like Segovia, barely say a word, come out and play, very dignified, and maybe walk off stage, come back, play, and you sometimes you didn't hear anybody utter a word until the encore, when they tell you what the piece is, or they say good night, thank you for coming, something like that. But an entire concert of somebody not talking at all. I just remember Jim and all the LHEQ guys, which were all kind of products of his, along with the Romeros. But I when I had solo concerts, I used to be like, okay, so I need to play for, an hour and a half. The first half needs to be this long, second half needs to be that long. Okay, I've got 30 minutes of music. Now, if I talk for 10, I can drag that out.
Right.
And I just shamelessly, I could learn a 10-minute piece, or I could just talk for 10 minutes. And, I think it also breaks the ice and kind of gives you a connection with your audience.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think it's really important.
So not a total cop out. I think it serves a good purpose. But
yes,
I just find it hard to believe that anybody's saying Jim talk and him saying I don't know what to say. That just
well, that was the first time that I said, Jim, I like to talk about the music and what they're listening to, and so that's how it started out. I don't know what to say. And then,
but he took off.
he took off. The rest is history.
Indeed.
Yeah. Well, when we are playing, usually I'm playing transcriptions these days, but there's hardly any place to breathe. It's because I'm, transcribing from string instruments. So, after I finish playing, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
And I can't say a word. So I usually say, Scott, just keep talking.
Yeah. No, Chika has the before arpeggione look and then the after arpeggione look.
Yeah, that's exhausting.
Yeah.
That's why I don't play transcriptions.
Good idea.
That or I just play movements, short movements, transcriptions.
Now you tell us.
You're right.
So how did you and Jim meet and got together and formed
that's a good question.
duo?
Yeah.
Well, we were teaching together at USC, and I heard a piece that really appealed to me, and all I could hear was guitar and saxophone. It was the Bachianas Brasileiras.
Villalobos.
Villalobos, right. And da dee da 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 da. And I knocked on his door, and I said, "Hi, I'm Doug Masek. I teach saxophone. Da da da. Would you be interested in reading this with me?" And that's how it started out. I just knocked on his door, and we got together. And he said, "Wow," he said, "I've never really heard soprano saxophone played like that before," because I was doing it on soprano, and. So I said, "Look, if you want to get together and just read through some things, maybe we can do that." And he said, "Yeah, I'll make up some arrangements." And that's kind of how it started. So it's just very innocent. I just wanted to hear that one piece about his Brasileiras, and the combination worked so well. I mean, and we just hit it off immediately.
And also Villalobos is one of Jim's favorite composers.
Yes.
The first piece he gave me when I was a student at USC was the Suite Propria Brasiliane, which is a 5-movement work of Charo. And it was just nothing but Villalobos for the first year with Jim.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
And the 5 preludes and
right. Yeah.
Concerto. It's like, are there any other composers?
Not today.
Not here. There aren't. That's right. Yeah. Did you guys record that by any chance?
We never recorded it. Yeah. We recorded so many other things, but we never recorded. I think we were past it by that point when we did the recording.
I think that'd make a great encore, don't you think?
Oh, it's beautiful. I mean, it's a great encore. It's a great piece to put in the program. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we played it an awful lot. Yeah. We had different versions of it also, because there's that middle section where it's
repeated
note. So we had different versions that we did of that, but we never got around to recording it. We had talked about it, and we just never really did it.
Have you published? Have you considered publishing that?
No.
No.
No. You mean with guitar?
Yeah.
Interesting you mentioned that. All the guitar music, all the guitar parts are archived at USC.
Oh, that's right.
And I have all the saxophone clarinet parts. And we can't seem to get together. The head of guitar at USC and myself, I know they had plans to publish all the music, and it's still sitting there. I get requests at least once a year, people who have heard our recording and saying, "Gosh, that's so beautiful, and where can I get the music?" And I said, "You can't. It's not available." So I said, "Your best bet is to just transcribe it off the recording." So.
Well, I know all the guitar faculty at SC, so I'll go in there with one of those little spy cameras. Hey, what's that?
Click.
Right.
No, never mind. It was nothing. It's just...
But I remember also the first time I introduced Jim to the Great American Songbook pieces. We got called to do a anniversary crossing of the Queen Mary. It was a anniversary of a group of people from London to the United States, and they wanted everything from the Great American Cole Porter and music like this. And I told Jim, I said, let's put together all this music. And he said, I don't even know any of that music. And to him, it was just like foreign music. And so I introduced him to all these pieces that he could consider for making arrangements. And it was like a whole new world opened up for him, because he really got into the lyrics. And I remember when we were playing this gig, that's when he was talking a lot. And he said, do you know what this means? Everybody, do you know the lyrics to this? He went through Begin the Begin, I think it was, something like this. And he went into what all the lyrics meant, and he was giving them this whole story of a love lost and, all this stuff. And it was like, Jim, we got to play this. But so that was another thing. Once he discovered all this great American songbook music, then we started really expanding the repertoire even greater. And when we go out and do gigs, we would play a lot of tunes from that era. And his arrangements were so superior, even in simple melodies, like a lot of them were. And what he could do with them was just astounding. Really.
Yeah. Yeah, he was one who inspired me. I barely play anything that's not an arrangement that I did. I just, something about arranging music for yourself and making it really your own.
Right.
Which I didn't do much when I was in my 20s and 30s, but now hardly anything I play is, not an arrangement that's original. And that's probably Jim in the back of my head.
That's Jim.
It's like, why would you do that? A million guitar players have done that. Unless you can play it better than David Russell and Pepe Romero, what's the point? It's like,
that's it.
Actually, that's a really solid point.
Right.
Play your own arrangement better than anybody in the world. Kind of like that. Yeah. I can't believe how quickly this flew by. We're actually past the hour here.
Yeah, it's been so much fun.
Wow, this has been great.
Yeah, it feels like we can just keep talking and hearing your stories.
No, but thank you both so much, and I wish both of you the best on your mission, and with the guitar and saxophone. It's just such a great combination, as you know. And it's hustling up the work, and opening up those doors. And the two of you are doing it. And,
Thank you.
Yeah, and of course, Chika, I'm so proud of all your accomplishments. And
thank you so much.
Oh yeah, and, you, the two of you sound terrific. I mean, really, that recording is. Oh, I'm glad you're playing that, and I'm not. Woo!
Yeah, and we're very excited to be releasing the next album. We have almost halfway through, so once I get back to LA, hopefully sometime this year soon, hopefully we can finish it up and get that released.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we may have to do it in Japan if it doesn't get better here.
Yes, that would be great. But thank you again.
Assuming they'll have me. Thank you, Doug. This has been really special, and I really enjoyed it.
Thank you very, very much.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.